You've got to, as a painting conservator, have that attention to detail, the ability to bring your focus of attention to what you're examining, to what you're doing. There's something happens when you're in the moment and doing something like that. It's only when you come out of that experience that you realise just how focused and how attentive you've been to something.
A lot of the work with paper involves a very thorough knowledge of chemistry, both the way in which the deterioration of paper has occurred in the first place, but also the way we use chemicals to preserve paper and turn back the clock on some of the damage.
I don't always know the origin of the painting or much about the artist, but the personal stories about the paintings can be really interesting. You become part of what's happened, part of the history of that object. That which is true. That's satisfying. That is satisfying.
The Cooper Gallery has a wonderful collection of French artworks which date from the 17th to the 20th centuries. These works have been the subject of a focused research project funded by Art Fund through the Headley Fellowship, and it enabled us to take a really close look at these artworks for the very first time. During the research and examination period, it became clear that a number of the artworks needed conservation treatment. We had assessments undertaken by specialist conservators, and as a result of this we've chosen a selected group and brought them to a conservator of oil paintings and a conservator of works on paper.
My name is David Everingham. I'm a paintings conservator. With a science background and a love of art, I found a natural application of my scientific skills to the arts. So this is a painting by the French artist Poittevin, River Landscape. The painting displays both surface grime and dirt and also a yellowed varnish. What I'm trying to do is separate the grime from the paint without affecting the original paint layer. So now, having removed both the surface grime and dirt and also the yellow varnish, we can see the original paint surface here. And you could be forgiven for looking at this painting and think, well, there's a lovely golden afternoon. And what we find here, we've got a really lovely bright blue, so the scene is probably a midday. It raises an interesting aspect of conservation, which is that of trying to determine what the intention of the artist was in the first place in painting this painting. Furthermore, there was a strange curvature around the centre of the painting here that warranted further investigation. Under ultraviolet light we can see quite clearly there's a dark patch that corresponds with the area of damage. So that tells me quite clearly this whole area in the centre of the painting here has been retouched. If we turn the painting over, you can see on the back here there's a sort of red bowly clay looking material here. It's actually an adhesive. It's clearly an old repair of some kind, and in fact there's paint loss around that area, and to boot the old retouching probably done in oil. You might get a very good match with oil paint to begin with, but as oil paint dries, and I don't mean getting to touch dry, I mean fully and chemically drying over an extended period, months and even years, the colour of the oil paint will darken. The plan will be to remove that old retouching and redo it in modern synthetic varnishes with pigments added, so that I get a long-lasting and matching retouching with this painting. Now, I sometimes wonder actually if the artist was to walk in and look at what's happening as it's being cleaned and maybe have some sort of relief that it's being looked after.
My name's Richard Hawkes and I'm a paper conservator. When a work of art comes in for assessment, the first thing we'd be looking at is really some evidence of how it's been framed or stored over the years. Quite often the damage that occurs with paper is a result of low quality framing materials that have been used in the past, and also where framers have used masking tape or other pressure sensitive tapes to hinge them. All of these can cause staining to the paper. Many of the works that have come from Barnsley Museum for this project have received some attention over the years by previous conservators and restorers. And really what we're looking at now is just to make sure that the condition they're in is as good as it can be. Papers are quite hygroscopic, that is, they respond to changes in humidity in the environment. Paper conservation, we're not so much involved with removal of varnishes. What we do use as our main solvent is actually water. Just water in itself can have a beneficial effect on paper to help us wash out soluble discoloration from the sheet, and also to raise the pH of the paper so it's less acidic. Paper tends to last longer if it's in a slightly alkaline or pH neutral condition. This is a lovely landscape drawing in graphite pencil by the artist Corot. Interestingly, when I open this one up, I'm able to find out two things. One is that the artist has used both sides of the sheet, so in fact it's a very similar view, but there's a drawing on the verso of the paper as well. There's also, quite interestingly, a nice watermark in this paper as well. We can read that it says J. Watman, Turkey Mill, 1825. This drawing has a few little spots and marks, as well as some distortions from the past hinges. Very thin papers like this were usually made as writing papers. They tend to expand and contract quite a lot when the conditions become damp. So with this one, we'll try and remove this distortion up here, but also do a double-sided mount for it so we can see both sides of the drawing even when it's in the frame. Even though I've been working as a conservator for 30 years, I still really love the day-to-day practical treatments that we carried out and getting involved at the bench in various treatments. I must admit I've always sought to maintain my involvement and getting my eyes up close to the works of art.
So there it is, the little Jongkind.
That's an amazing transformation. It is one of the best things when you see a work come back from a conservator and you see that transformation.
So should we have a closer look? So essentially, years of dirt and grime had sort of cast a veil of yellow across this picture.
All of those layers being removed, you can see what was supposed to be there originally. So for me, instantly, it's the richness of these colours starting to come through in this it's a pre-impressionist work.
Those lovely cool colours of a winter scene, not seen through a veil of yellow with the sort of warm, transformative warm hues that creates.
This second work that has come back by Eugène le Poittevin, this one had some particularly interesting areas to tackle as well, didn't it?
It did, and the particular area of concern was an old restoration, and it's not unusual for paintings of any age to have had some sort of treatment in the past. This red area is effectively a red bowl clay mixed with an animal glue to make a solid mass. The treatment proposal, which we always start with when we're thinking about what we're going to do, involved removing that patch and repatching the whole work. But this red patch here proved very tough. In addition, it was clear that it had caused some level of distortion in the canvas. Some other issues, including the delicacy of the canvas itself, meant that there was risk associated with doing what I'd proposed, so I had to modify the treatment during the process to ensure that the artwork was secure and wasn't damaged in any way.
You can see again though, this one was really yellowed and almost looked like a bit of a twilight or evening scene, I remember. And now you can feel it as a maybe late morning, middle of the day working scene. These two paintings, amongst many others, they're going to feature in our French exhibition, and it's going to be wonderful for the public to be able to see them as well. So thank you.